Maya Collins pulled her jacket tighter as she walked down the empty street. The city lights made long shadows on the sidewalk. It was almost midnight, and she was tired after working a double shift at the medical clinic. Her feet hurt and all. She wanted was to get home to her small apartment. She had been a nurse for 5 years now, but the job never got easier. Today had been especially hard. 3 homeless people had come in with serious injuries, and there wasn't much the clinic could do except patch them up and send them back to the streets. Maya always wondered what happened to them after they left Dot. As she turned the corner onto her street, something caught her eye. There was movement in the narrow alley between 2 old apartment buildings. Maya stopped walking and listened. She heard a soft whimpering sound, like an animal in pain. Most people would have kept walking. The alley was dark and probably dangerous. But Maya had always been the kind of person who couldn't ignore someone or something that needed help. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. The light beam swept across trash cans and broken bottles. Then it stopped on something that made Maya gasp. There was a large creature huddled against the brick wall. At first, she thought it might be a very big dog, or maybe a bear that had somehow wandered into the city. But as she stepped closer, she realized this was something completely different. The creature had scales that caught the light from her phone. They were deep blue and green, like the ocean at night. Its body was about the size of a small car, but it was curled up tight, trying to make itself smaller. 2 large wings were folded against its sides, but one wing was bent at a strange angle. Blood was seeping through several cuts on its hide. Maya's heart pounded as she stared at the impossible sight. This was a dragon, a real living dragon right here in downtown Chicago. She had seen them in movies and read about them in fairy tales, but never imagined they could be real. The dragon's head lifted slightly, and Maya found herself looking into the most intelligent eyes she had ever seen. They were golden, with flecks of silver, and they held a depth of wisdom that seemed ancient. The creature looked at her with what she could only describe as dignity, even though it was clearly suffering. Maya took a careful step forward. The dragon didn't move away or try to attack. Instead, it seemed to study her face, as if trying to decide whether she was friend or enemy. Maya slowly knelt down, still keeping some distance between them. "Hey there," she said softly, the way she talked to scared patients at the clinic. "You're hurt pretty bad, aren't you?" The dragon made a low rumbling sound that might have been agreement. Maya could see that it was severely malnourished. Its ribs showed through the patchy scales, and its breathing was shallow and labored. Whatever this creature was, wherever it had come from, it was starving. Maya stood up slowly. "I'll be right back," she promised. "Don't go anywhere." She ran to the 24-hour deli 3 blocks away. The owner, Mr. Peterson, was getting ready to close, but he knew Maya from her late-night visits after work. "Working late again?" he asked as she burst through the door. "I need all the cooked meat you have," Maya said, pulling out her wallet. "Everything. Chicken, beef, turkey, whatever you've got." Mr. Peterson raised an eyebrow, but didn't ask questions. He packed up everything from the hot food counter: grilled chicken breasts, roast beef, turkey sandwiches, even some leftover meatballs. Maya paid for it all, spending most of the money she had left until payday. When she got back to the alley, the dragon was still there. It had moved slightly, dragging itself closer to the streetlight. Maya could see its injuries more clearly. Now, besides the broken wing, there were deep gashes across its back and sides, as if it had been in a terrible fight. Maya opened the first container of food and set it down a few feet away from the dragon. The creature's nostrils flared as it caught the scent. It looked at Maya questioningly, as if asking permission. "Go ahead," Maya said. "It's for you." The dragon moved forward carefully and began to eat. It was clearly trying to maintain its dignity, even while starving, taking small, deliberate bites instead of wolfing down the food. Maya watched in amazement as this mythical creature ate deli chicken in a dirty alley. As the dragon ate, Maya went back to her apartment and grabbed her medical bag. She always kept a well-stocked first aid kit, and she had learned a lot about treating injuries during her nursing training. When she returned, the dragon had finished most of the food and was looking much more alert. Maya approached slowly, holding up the medical supplies. "I'm a nurse," she explained, not sure if the creature could understand her, but feeling like she should talk anyway. "I'd like to help with those cuts if you'll let me." The dragon tilted its great head, considering. Then it extended its injured wing slightly, as if offering it for examination. Maya's hands shook as she began to clean the wounds. The dragon's scales were warm to the touch and had a texture like smooth leather. The creature held perfectly still as she worked, though she could feel its muscles tense when she touched the more serious injuries. The broken wing was beyond her ability to fix properly, but she was able to stabilize it with a makeshift splint made from cardboard and medical tape. She cleaned and bandaged the cuts on the dragon's back and sides, using almost her entire supply of gauze and antiseptic. Throughout the whole process, the dragon watched her with those incredible golden eyes. There was something almost human in its expression, gratitude, but also a kind of surprise, as if it hadn't expected to find kindness in this place. When Maya finished, she sat back on her heels. The dragon looked much better already. The bleeding had stopped, and its breathing seemed easier. "I wish I could do more," Maya said, "but this is all I know how to do." The dragon made that low rumbling sound again, but this time it sounded almost like purring. It slowly lowered its great head until it was level with Maya's, and for a moment they just looked at each other. Maya reached out hesitantly and touched the dragon's snout. The scales were surprisingly soft there, almost like silk. The dragon's eyes drifted closed, and Maya could have sworn she saw relief in its expression. "I have to go to work tomorrow," Maya said, "but I'll come back tomorrow night. I'll bring more food, and I'll check on your bandages." The dragon opened its eyes and looked at her intently, as if it understood every word. Maya gathered up her medical supplies and the empty food containers as she walked toward the mouth of the alley. She turned back for one last look. The dragon was watching her go, its golden eyes glowing softly in the darkness. There was something in that gaze that made Maya feel like she had just made a promise, not just to return, but something bigger and more important than she could understand. Maya walked home with her mind spinning. She had just met a real dragon. She had fed it and treated its wounds, and it had let her. Tomorrow, she would have to decide whether this had all been some kind of stress-induced hallucination, or whether her life had just changed in ways she couldn't even imagine. As she fell asleep that night, Maya dreamed of golden eyes and the feeling that something extraordinary was about to begin. Maya's eyes snapped open as her entire apartment began to shake. At first, she thought it was an earthquake. Living in Chicago, she had felt small tremors before, but this was different. The shaking had a rhythm to it, like a giant heartbeat. Pulsing through the building. She sat up in bed and looked at her alarm clock. It was 3 a.m. The shaking got stronger, and she could hear her dishes rattling in the kitchen cabinets. But what really caught her attention was the light coming from her living room. It wasn't the normal yellow glow from the street lamps outside. This light was golden and bright, and it seemed to be moving. Maya grabbed her robe and slowly opened her bedroom door. The light was so bright she had to squint. It was coming from somewhere near her coffee table, pulsing in time with the shaking of the apartment. The air smelled strange too, like the moment right before lightning strikes, mixed with something that reminded her of cinnamon and flowers. She stepped into the living room and gasped. Above her coffee table, reality seemed to be tearing apart. There was a perfect circle of golden light floating in the air, about 6 feet across. The edges crackled with energy that made her skin tingle. Through the circle, Maya could see another world entirely. It wasn't like looking through a window. It was like looking at a completely different universe. She saw floating islands connected by bridges made of pure light. Strange, beautiful creatures flew through skies that shifted between purple and gold. In the distance, she could make out towers that seemed to be made of crystal, reaching impossibly high into the alien sky. The humming sound grew louder, and the portal began to stabilize. The wild crackling around the edges settled into a steady glow. Maya stood frozen in her living room, wearing her old blue robe and fuzzy slippers, staring at what had to be a doorway to another dimension. Then someone stepped through. Maya's heart nearly stopped beating. The figure was tall and graceful, wearing robes that looked like they were cut from starlight itself. The fabric seemed to shift and flow even when the person wasn't moving. But it was the face that made Maya stumble backward. She recognized those eyes. They were the same golden eyes with silver flecks that had looked at her with such gratitude in the alley. But now they belonged to someone who looked almost human, except for the pointed ears and the way he seemed to glow slightly in the dim light of her apartment. The being stepped fully into her living room and looked around with curiosity. He was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, like staring at the sun. His hair was long and dark, and when he moved, Maya caught glimpses of the same blue-green scales she remembered from the dragon's hide, but now they formed intricate patterns along his neck and hands. "Maya Collins," he said, and his voice was like music. It had layers to it, harmonies that made her name sound like the most beautiful word she had ever heard. "Please do not be afraid." Maya's voice came out as a whisper. "You're the dragon." From the alley, the being smiled, and Maya felt her knees go weak. "I am indeed. My name is Prince Xander of the celestial realm of Ethros. What you saw last night was my wounded form, trapped in your dimension by injuries that prevented me from returning home." Maya sank down onto her couch, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing and hearing. "Prince? Your royalty?" "Among my people, yes," Xander said. He gestured, and Maya's apartment filled with soft, golden light that didn't hurt her eyes. "I am the third son of Queen Lirale, ruler of the Draconic Ascended. We are an ancient race that has watched over many worlds for thousands of your years." Maya shook her head. "This can't be real. I'm dreaming. Or maybe I had a breakdown from working too many double shifts." Xander stepped closer, and Maya could feel warmth radiating from him like standing near a fireplace. "You showed me kindness when I was wounded and lost. You asked for nothing in return. You used your own money to buy me food, and you treated my injuries with gentle hands. By the ancient laws of my people, I am bound to offer you something in return." "I don't want anything," Maya said quickly. "I just wanted to help." "And that," Xander said, his golden eyes growing brighter, "is exactly why I'm here. Your selfless act has convinced me that humanity deserves a chance." Maya frowned. "A chance for what?" Xander waved his hand, and the air above Maya's coffee table shimmered. Suddenly, the space was filled with images that looked more real than any movie she had ever seen. She saw Earth from space, then cities, then crowds of people going about their daily lives. "Your species has caught the attention of the galactic community," Xander explained as the images shifted to show other worlds, other civilizations. Maya saw beings that looked like living crystals, creatures that seemed made of pure energy, and others so alien she couldn't even guess what they might be. "In the cosmic sense, humanity is very young," Xander continued. "Most species take tens of thousands of years to develop the technology you have achieved in mere centuries. You have gone from discovering fire to splitting atoms in the blink of an eye, cosmically speaking. The images changed again, showing human achievements. Maya saw rockets launching into space, doctors performing surgery, scientists working in laboratories, and artists creating beautiful works. This rapid advancement has made some of the older civilizations nervous, Xander said, and his expression grew serious. There is a coalition called the Hegemony. They believe that young, rapidly advancing species like humanity are dangerous. They think you will either destroy yourselves or become a threat to other worlds. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. What does that mean for us? The Hegemony has been debating what to do about Earth for several of your years now, Xander said. Some believe humanity should be given guidance and advanced technology to help you develop peacefully. Others think Earth should be ... contained until you either evolve past your aggressive tendencies or eliminate yourselves entirely. The images in the air showed what Maya assumed were the other alien civilizations Xander was talking about. Some looked peaceful and wise, while others seemed more threatening. All of them looked incredibly advanced compared to humanity. But there is a third option, Xander continued. If humanity could prove that you have the capacity for wisdom and compassion, if you could show that your rapid advancement comes with equally rapid moral growth, then you could be welcomed into the galactic community as equals. Maya's head was spinning. And you think one person feeding a hungry dragon proves that? Xander smiled again, and this time there was something almost fond in his expression. Not just one person. I have been studying your species for months, observing your behavior in secret. What happened between us was not unique, Maya Collins. Everywhere I looked, I found humans who would help strangers without expecting reward. I found people who risked their lives to save others they have never met. I found a species that creates beauty for no reason other than the joy of creation. He gestured, and the images changed to show scenes Maya recognized as uniquely human. People donating blood, volunteers at soup kitchens, firefighters running into burning buildings, teachers staying late to help struggling students, strangers helping each other during natural disasters. The Hegemony judges you by your wars and your mistakes, Xander said, but I have seen your capacity for love and sacrifice. I believe humanity deserves a voice in the galactic community. Maya stood up slowly, her legs still shaky. What are you asking me to do? I am asking you to come with me, Xander said simply. To speak for your species before the Cosmic Assembly. To be humanity's representative and advocate. Your voice could determine whether Earth is welcomed among the stars, or whether it faces a very different future. Maya looked at the swirling portal, then at Xander's earnest face, then at the images still floating in her living room air. Everything she had ever known about the universe had just been turned upside down. Aliens were real. Dragons were real. And somehow, feeding a hungry creature in an alley had led to this moment where the fate of her entire species might depend on her decision. How long do I have to decide? She asked. The assembly convenes in 3 of your days, Xander replied. But Maya Collins, I must tell you something else. If you choose to come with me, there is no guarantee you will be able to return to your old life. A galaxy is vast and full of wonders, but it is also dangerous. And once humanity's fate is decided, everything will change, one way or another. Maya sat back down heavily. 3 days to decide whether to leave everything she had ever known to try to save the world. No pressure at all. Maya couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. She sat on her couch, staring at the spot where the portal had been. Xander had closed it before leaving, promising to return the next evening for her answer. The apartment felt empty and ordinary. Now, but Maya could still smell that strange mixture of lightning and spices in the air. She called in sick to work, something she had never done unless she was actually dying. Her supervisor was surprised, but told her to rest and feel better. Maya almost laughed. Rest was the last thing she would be doing today. She spent the morning pacing around her apartment, trying to convince herself that none of it had been real. But the scorch marks on her ceiling from the portal's energy were very real. The way her dishes had been rearranged from all the shaking was real too. And deep down, Maya knew she hadn't imagined those golden eyes or that voice like music by. Afternoon, she had made a decision. If she was going to represent humanity, she needed to understand exactly what that meant. When Xander returned that evening, she was ready with questions. The portal opened at exactly the same time as the night before. Xander stepped through, looking just as elegant and otherworldly as Maya remembered. This time, though, she was ready. For him, "I want to know everything," Maya said before he could speak. "If I'm going to make this choice, I need to understand what humanity is really facing." Xander nodded as if he had expected this. "You are wise to ask. Please, sit down. This will take some time to explain properly." Maya sat on her couch while Xander remained standing. He gestured with his hands, and the air above her coffee table filled with images again. This time, they showed star maps and what looked like political boundaries drawn across space. The galaxy is divided into several major powers, Xander began. The oldest and most established is the hegemony. They have controlled the central systems for over 50,000 of your years. They believe that order and stability are the most important things in the universe. The images showed massive space stations and fleets of ships that looked more like floating cities. Maya could see beings in elaborate robes, making what looked like important decisions in vast council chambers. The hegemony sees itself as the guardian of galactic peace, Xander continued. When a new species develops space travel, they evaluate whether that species is ready to join galactic civilization. If they decide the species is too dangerous or unstable, they intervene. What kind of intervention? Maya asked, though she was afraid she already knew. Sometimes they simply quarantine the species to their home system until they mature, Xander said. Sometimes they provide guidance and technology to help speed up development. And sometimes, he paused, and the images showed empty solar systems, where planets should have been. Sometimes they decide that a species is too dangerous to be allowed to continue. Maya felt sick to her stomach. They destroy entire civilizations? It has happened 17 times in recorded history, Xander sighed quietly. The hegemony calls it pruning the galactic garden to prevent future wars and suffering. They believe it is a mercy, preventing young species from causing damage to themselves and others. The images changed to show Earth from space again. Maya could see the blue oceans and white clouds, all the cities where billions of people lived. Their lives, completely unaware that aliens were debating their right to exist. Humanity's rapid technological advancement has concerned them, Xander explained. In their view, you have developed powerful weapons and space travel without developing the wisdom to use them responsibly. They point to your wars, your environmental damage, and your social conflicts as evidence that you are not ready for galactic contact. But there are other factions, Maya said. You mentioned you believe we deserve a chance. Xander smiled, and the images shifted to show different ships and stations. These looked more organic, as if they had been grown rather than built. The beings Maya saw looked more diverse, and there was something about their body language that seemed more relaxed and friendly. The Alliance of Free Worlds believes that every species has the right to develop at their own pace, Xander said. We think that diversity makes the galaxy stronger, not weaker. Young species bring new ideas and perspectives that benefit everyone. We? Maya noticed the word choice. My people, the Draconic Ascended, are founding members of the Alliance. Xander explained. We were once young and reckless too. The hegemony wanted to quarantine us when we first developed interstellar travel. They said we were too emotional and unpredictable. But another species spoke for us and convinced the galactic community to give us a chance. The images showed dragons like Xander, but in their true forms, flying between stars and building cities on floating islands. Maya realized she had seen some of these places through the portal the night before. We learned and grew, Xander continued. We became valued members of galactic civilization. Now we try to do for others what was done for us. We look for young, species that show promise and advocate for them. And you think humanity shows promise because I fed you in an alley? Maya asked. Xander's expression became more serious. Not just because of what you did, Maya Collins. I spent months on your world, observing your people in secret. I saw things that amazed me. The images changed to show scenes from around Earth. Maya saw firefighters rescuing people from burning buildings, doctors treating patients in refugee camps, teachers in poor schools staying late to help students, strangers helping each other during natural disasters. I watched a human woman share her last piece of bread with a hungry dog, Xander said. I saw a man jump into a frozen river to save a child he had never met. I observed humans creating art and music and literature, not for profit or survival, but simply because beauty matters to them. More images flashed by. Maya saw volunteers at animal shelters, people donating blood, scientists working to cure diseases, environmental activists planting trees, and ordinary people performing small acts of kindness every day. But I also saw your capacity for sacrifice. On a larger scale, Xander continued, humans who dedicate their entire lives to helping others. People who give up wealth and comfort to work in the poorest parts of your world. Individuals who risk everything to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Maya recognized some of the scenes. She had seen news stories about doctors working in war zones, aid workers in disaster areas, and activists fighting for human rights even when it put them in danger. The hegemony looks at your wars and sees only violence, Xander said. But I looked at your wars and saw humans who were willing to die to protect their families and their values. I saw enemies who became friends after the fighting ended. I saw people who learned from their mistakes and worked to prevent future conflicts. The images showed veterans from different countries working together on peace projects, former enemies shaking hands, and memorials, dedicated not to victory, but to the hope that future generations would find better ways to solve their problems. Impressive of all, Xander said, I saw humans who criticized their own species and worked to make it better. What other young civilization has individuals who dedicate their lives to pointing out their society's flaws and demanding improvement? Maya thought about all the activists and reformers throughout human history, people who had fought against slavery, worked for women's rights, campaigned for civil rights, and pushed for environmental protection, even when it was unpopular or dangerous. Your species is not perfect, Xander continued. No species is. But you have something that many older civilizations have lost. You have hope. You believe you can become better than you are. And more importantly, you actually work to make that belief reality. The images faded, leaving Maya and Xander alone. In her small apartment, Maya felt overwhelmed by everything she had learned. The weight of representing her entire species felt impossible to bear. There's something else you should know, Xander said quietly. The Cosmic Assembly will not just be evaluating humanity based on what you say. They will be evaluating humanity based on who you are. They chose you not as a politician or a leader, but as an ordinary human being. Your character will be seen as representative of your species' character. Maya's mouth went dry. No pressure at all. I will not lie to you, Xander said. The decision could go either way. The hegemony has powerful allies and strong arguments. But I believe that if the Assembly could see what I have seen in humanity, they would welcome you among the stars. Maya stood up and walked to her window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, millions of people were going about their lives, completely unaware that their future might depend on what one tired nurse decided to do. "If I say yes," Maya said without turning around, "what happens next?" "We go to the Cosmic Assembly," Xander replied. "You speak for your species. And then the galaxy decides what humanity's future will be." Maya spent the entire next day thinking about Xander's offer. She walked through the city, looking at people differently than she ever had before. The businessman hurrying to catch a taxi, the mother pushing a stroller, the teenagers laughing. At the bus stop, all of them were counting on her to make the right choice. Even though they didn't know it, she found herself at the clinic where she worked, even though it was her day off. Dr. Lisa Park was there, treating a homeless man who had been beaten up and robbed. Maya watched through the window as Lisa carefully cleaned his wounds, talking to him gently and treating him with the same respect she would show any patient. Lisa had been Maya's mentor when she first started working as a nurse. She was in her 50s, with gray hair and kind eyes, and she had spent her entire career treating people who couldn't afford to go anywhere else. She had turned down job offers from expensive private hospitals because she believed everyone deserved good medical care, regardless of how much money they had. Maya made her first decision then. If she was going to represent humanity, she couldn't do it alone. She needed to show the galactic community what humans were really like, and that meant bringing examples of humanity's best qualities. When Xander appeared in her apartment that evening, Maya was ready. "I'll go with you," she said. "But I have conditions." Xander raised an eyebrow. "Conditions?" "If I'm supposed to represent humanity, I want to bring 2 other people with me," Maya said. "People who can show different aspects of what makes humans special." "The assembly will allow this," Xander said. "Who did you have in mind?" Maya took a deep breath. "Dr. Lisa Park, who works at my clinic. She's spent her whole life helping people who have nothing to give her in return. And Jake Murphy, who runs a food bank for homeless veterans. He's a former soldier who now dedicates his life to helping other soldiers who are struggling." Xander nodded thoughtfully. "These sound like good choices. People who show humanity's capacity for compassion and service to others. There's just one problem," Maya said. "How do I explain to them that aliens are real and we need to save the world?" Xander smiled. "Leave that to me." The next morning, Maya asked both Lisa and Jake to come to her apartment, telling them she had something important to discuss. Lisa arrived first, looking concerned. She was a small woman with silver hair, pulled back in a ponytail, wearing scrubs from her morning shift. "Maya, you sounded upset on the phone," Lisa said as she sat down. "Is everything okay?" Before Maya could answer, there was a knock at the door. Jake Murphy stood in the hallway, looking puzzled. He was a big man in his 40s, with scarred hands and the straight posture of someone who had been in the military. He ran the largest food bank in the city, and Maya had met him when the clinic started referring homeless patients there. "This better be important," Jake said as he came in. "I've got 3 trucks of donations to sort through today." Maya looked at both of them, these 2 people who had dedicated their lives to helping others, and realized she was about to change their lives forever. "I need you both to sit down," Maya said. "And I need you to promise me you'll hear me out. Before you decide, I've lost my mind." Lisa and Jake looked at each other, then sat on Maya's couch. Maya took a deep breath and nodded toward her bedroom door. Xander walked out, still in his human-like form, but allowing his true nature to show more clearly. His skin had a faint golden glow, and the scale patterns on his neck and hands were more visible. His golden eyes seemed to catch the light in an impossible way. Lisa gasped and grabbed Jake's arm. Jake stood up quickly, putting himself between Lisa and Xander. "It's okay," Maya said quickly. "He's a friend. His name is Prince Xander, and he's not from Earth." For the next hour, Maya and Xander explained everything. They showed Lisa and Jake the portal, demonstrated some of Xander's abilities, and revealed the truth about humanity's situation. Lisa asked medical questions about Xander's alien physiology. Jake asked practical questions about alien technology and weapons. Both of them were skeptical at first, but as the evidence mounted, they began to believe. Finally, Xander created another series of images in the air, showing them the same galactic civilizations he had shown Maya. "So let me get this straight," Jake said, rubbing his forehead. "Aliens have been watching us, and they're trying to decide whether to welcome us into their space club or wipe us out completely." "That's a simplified version, but essentially correct," Xander replied. Lisa was staring at the images of alien medical facilities, the technology they have. "We could cure every disease on Earth. We could end hunger, stop aging, explore the stars. If humanity is accepted into the galactic community, all of that is possible," Xander said. "But if not, we're dead," Jake finished. Maya looked at her two friends. "That's why I need you both to come with me. The assembly needs to see what humanity is really like. Lisa, you represent our dedication to healing and helping others. Jake, you represent our ability to learn from conflict and work for peace." "What about you?" Lisa asked. Maya shrugged. "I represent our willingness to help strangers, even when it's inconvenient or costly." Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked up at Xander. "If we don't go, what are humanity's chances, honestly?" "Perhaps 30%, Xander replied. "The hegemony has been building support for containment or elimination. Without strong advocates, I fear the assembly will choose the safer option. And if we go, with your testimony and showing the assembly the kind of people humanity produces, perhaps 70%. Lisa stood up. "I'm in. When do we leave?" Jake nodded. "Me too. I didn't spend 20 years in the army just to let humanity get wiped out by space bureaucrats." 2 hours later, they were walking through the portal into Xander's realm. The transition was smoother than Maya had expected. One moment she was stepping through a circle of golden light in her apartment. The next she was standing on a platform made of what looked like crystallized starlight. The world around them was breathtaking. They were on one of the floating islands. Maya had glimpsed through the portal. The sky was a deep purple color, and 3 moons hung in the air like jewels. In the distance, she could see other islands connected by bridges of pure energy, with elegant spires reaching toward the stars. "Welcome to Ethros," Xander said. His phone was changing as they watched, becoming more draconic, but still maintaining his humanoid shape. "From here, we will travel to the cosmic assembly." Their transportation was unlike anything from Earth. The ship seemed to be alive, its walls pulsing gently with a soft blue light. When Maya touched the wall, it felt warm and slightly soft, like touching skin. The ship responded to Xander's thoughts rather than controls, and they could see outside through walls that became transparent when they wanted to look. During the journey, which Xander said would take 2 days, he taught them about the different alien species they would encounter. Some were energy beings who barely had physical form. Others were so different from humans that communication was difficult. Many were incredibly old, with civilizations that had existed for millions of years. "The key thing to remember," Xander explained as they traveled through space at impossible speeds, "is that most of these beings have forgotten what it's like to be young and uncertain. They've achieved stability and peace, but they've also become stagnant. They rarely change or grow anymore." Lisa was fascinated by the medical pods on the ship, which could heal almost any injury in minutes. Jake was impressed by the ships. defensive systems which could protect them from weapons that could destroy planets. Maya was most interested in the communication systems, which could translate any language instantly and even convey emotions and intentions. The assembly station is the largest artificial structure in the galaxy, Xander told them as they approached their destination. Representatives from over 10,000 worlds meet there to make decisions that affect billions of beings. Through the transparent walls of their ship, Maya saw it in the distance. The cosmic assembly station was enormous, larger than Earth's moon. It looked like a collection of massive rings spinning around a central core, with ships coming and going like insects around a hive. There are delegates here who have been alive since before your species learned to use fire, Xander said. Some of them see younger species as children who need to be protected from themselves. Others see them as potential threats to be eliminated before they become dangerous. As their ship docked at the station, Maya felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders again. Somewhere in this massive structure, beings from across the galaxy would decide whether humanity lived or died based on what she and her companions said and did. Remember, Xander said as they prepared to leave the ship, you are not just representing yourselves. You represent every human who has ever lived and every human who might be born in the future. But also remember that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be genuinely human. Maya took Lisa's and Jake's hands as they walked toward the entrance to the assembly chamber. Whatever happened next would determine the fate of their entire species. No pressure at all. The assembly chamber was the largest room Maya had ever seen. It was so vast that she couldn't see the ceiling, and the walls curved away into misty distance. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in sections arranged in a great circle. Some looked almost human, while others were so alien that Maya couldn't understand what she was looking at. Maya, Lisa, and Jake sat in a small section designated for new species. Around them, the air hummed with translation devices that would carry their words to every being in the chamber, no matter what language they spoke or how they communicated. The hegemony's representative spoke first. It was a being that looked like it was made of living crystal, tall and sharp-edged, with a voice that sounded like wind chimes. It had no name that humans could pronounce, so the translator simply called it the Speaker for Order. Honored Assembly. The speaker began. We gather today to decide the fate of the species, known as humans from the world they call Earth. The evidence against allowing them into galactic civilization is overwhelming. Images filled the air above the chamber floor. Maya watched in horror as scenes from human history played out for all to see. Wars, pollution, violence, poverty, discrimination. Every terrible thing humans had ever done was displayed for the galaxy to witness. Observe their constant warfare, the speaker continued. In their brief recorded history, they have fought over 30,000 wars. They have created weapons capable of destroying their own world multiple times over. They cannot even agree on basic principles of governance or morality. More images showed environmental destruction, species extinction, and social inequality. Maya felt sick watching it all. How could she argue against evidence that was clearly true? They advanced technologically faster than any species in recorded history, the speaker said, but their wisdom and compassion have not grown at the same rate. They are a young species with old weapons, children playing with tools that could destroy galaxies. The speaker gestured, and the images changed to show human space missions and nuclear weapons. Already, they have begun to reach beyond their world. In perhaps a century, they will have interstellar travel. Do we want such a violent, unpredictable species spreading across the galaxy? Several beings in the assembly made sounds of agreement. Maya noticed that many of the oldest civilizations seemed to nod their approval of the speaker's words. The hegemony recommends immediate containment, the speaker concluded. Place a barrier around their solar system until they either learn to control their violent impulses or destroy themselves. It is the only safe option for the galaxy. When the speaker finished, a heavy silence fell over the chamber. Maya could feel thousands of alien eyes looking toward her small section. Her heart was pounding so hard, she was sure everyone could hear it. Then Xander stood up. In this setting, he had taken his full draconic form, magnificent and powerful, with scales that seemed to hold captured starlight. When he spoke, his voice carried across the vast chamber without any need for amplification. "Honored assembly," Xander said, "I have spent months living among the humans, observing them closely. Yes, they have flaws. Yes, they make mistakes. But the hegemony has shown you only part of the truth." New images appeared in the air, and Maya recognized many of them from her conversations with Xander. Doctors treating patients, firefighters, rescuing people, volunteers helping at disaster sites, scientists working to cure diseases. The speaker talks about their 30,000 wars, Xander continued, but fails to mention that most of those conflicts ended with peace treaties, often followed by lasting friendships between former enemies. They speak of human violence, but ignore human sacrifice for others. The images showed soldiers jumping on grenades to save their comrades, civilians hiding refugees during genocides, people donating organs to strangers, and countless other acts of selfless courage. Humans do not just fight, Xander said. They fight for principles. They risk their lives to protect those who cannot protect themselves. They create art and music and literature that celebrates beauty and love and hope. Most importantly, they recognize their own flaws and work constantly to become better. Maya watched beings throughout the assembly leaning forward, paying attention to Xander's words. But she could also see skeptical expressions on many faces. The Alliance believes. That diversity makes us stronger, Xander concluded. Humanity offers something we have lost in our ancient wisdom, the energy and optimism of youth, combined with genuine compassion for others. I asked the assembly to hear their own words before making this decision. All eyes turned to Maya. She stood up on shaking legs, feeling smaller than she ever had in her life. The translator device amplified her voice, but she still felt like she was whispering into a hurricane. Honored assembly, Maya began. Everything the hegemony said about us is true. We are violent. We are flawed. We make terrible mistakes. But we're also something else. We're a species that never stops trying to be better. She gestured, and the air filled with images that Xander had prepared for her. These showed moments of human growth and change, the end of slavery, women gaining rights, civil rights movements, environmental protection efforts, and international cooperation. You judge us by our wars, Maya continued, finding her voice. Growing stronger, but you ignore what we learned from those wars. After the most terrible conflict in our history, we created the United Nations to try to prevent future wars. We wrote laws about human rights and war crimes. We're not perfect at following them, but we keep trying. Maya saw some beings in the assembly nodding slightly. Encouraged, she continued. We know we pollute our world, so we're developing clean energy. We know we have poverty and inequality, so people dedicate their lives to fighting those problems. We know we can be cruel, so we teach our children to be kind. She gestured toward Lisa. Dr. Park has spent 30 years treating people who can't pay her. She could have made more money working somewhere else, but she chose to help those who needed it most. Lisa stood up briefly, bowing to the assembly. Several beings made sounds of approval. Maya turned toward Jake. Jake Murphy fought in 3 wars, saw terrible violence, and could have become bitter and angry. Instead, he came home and dedicated his life to helping other veterans who were struggling. He turned his pain into compassion. Jake stood as well, his military bearing evident even in this alien setting. More sounds of approval echoed through the chamber. "We're not asking you to trust us because we're perfect," Maya said, her voice now carrying clearly across the vast space. "We're asking you to trust us because we know we're not perfect, and we're always working to be better. Every day, millions of humans make small choices to help others, to create beauty, to build something positive." She paused, looking around at the thousands of alien faces watching her. "You say we're children playing with dangerous tools. Maybe that's true. But children grow up. And when they do, they often surprise you with their wisdom and strength." The chamber was completely quiet now. Maya could feel the weight of their attention, their consideration of her words. "I can't promise you that humanity will never make mistakes," Maya concluded, "but I can promise you that we'll learn from them. I can promise you that we'll always have people who are willing to sacrifice for others, who create beauty for its own sake, who fight for justice even when it's hard. And I can promise you that if you give us a chance, we'll do everything we can to make the galaxy a better place." Maya sat down, her legs barely able to hold her up anymore. The silence in the chamber stretched on and on. Then, slowly, a sound began to build. It started with a few beings making soft sounds of approval, then spread throughout the chamber. Maya realized with amazement that she was hearing applause, expressed in dozens of different ways by dozens of different species. The vote, when it came, was closer than anyone had expected. The final tally was announced by a being that looked like a tree, made of light: 5,847 in favor of welcoming humanity into the galactic community, 5,203 in favor of containment, and 331 abstentions. Maya collapsed back into her seat, hardly able to believe it. They had won. Humanity would be given a chance to prove itself among the stars. As beings began to file out of the chamber, many stopped to speak with the human delegation. A crystalline entity that communicated through color changes congratulated them on their courage. A gaseous being that spoke in musical tones expressed interest in human art. An ancient creature that looked like a walking mountain said it looked forward to seeing what humanity would accomplish when they finally returned to Earth through the portal, now permanently established in a secure government facility. Maya found herself appointed as Earth's first Galactic Ambassador. The portal had brought more than just diplomatic contact. It had brought new technologies that would help humanity solve many of its problems. Clean energy systems that could end dependence on fossil fuels. Medical advances that could cure previously incurable diseases. Agricultural techniques that could end hunger. Educational technologies that could connect every human to the sum of galactic knowledge. But Maya's favorite change was smaller and more personal. The dragon she had helped in an alley had become her closest friend and advisor, helping humanity navigate its first steps into a larger universe.